we're talking still about this terminology. Now, I mentioned earlier about overlay districts, right? So if I'm in a residential neighborhood and I'm in an R7000, 7500, which is my zone, and I'm also in a flood zone, that's an overlay, right? Something, I'm in two different types of zones, right? So that is an overlay district, all right? Zoning over top of one another. If I was in, maybe in, let's see, try to think of New Bern, all right, using New Bern, it's an old town. Maybe there's some historic preservation there. Stuff that goes back to the, 1900, early 1900s, right? So historic preservation zoning. Has anybody ever run across a historical society? Anybody ever dealt with historical societies? I used to live in Frederick, Maryland. Now, Frederick, Maryland is right in between Gettysburg Battlefield and Antietam Battlefield, literally the walk path to the Civil War. And then we had I always make the mistake of calling them a hysterical society, but we had a historical society, but they were so strict about these things. I mean, literally, you got to replace these, glass windows with wood pane windows. You can't replace them with, modern aluminum windows. You got to replace them with the same thing. So they're very, very strict. I understand it because I love the history of it, but it can cost you a lot of money and a lot of time. Downtown Raleigh, I'm sure they're being rebuilt. They're rebuilding some old houses in downtown Raleigh. If you go there, right, some of these houses have been being refurbished for years. Well, that's because we got to use the same materials. We got to use the same craftsmanship. We got to use, everything's got to go back the way it was. If it's in historical preservation zoning, they'll be it's going to be very, very difficult, right? And expensive. How many stonemasons do you know? If you can name more than 2 stonemasons, good for you. You'll need them. But I don't know 2 stonemasons, right? Back in 1875, did they have multiple stonemasons? I would say that was probably a good way to make a living, right? Building with stone, using our hands. Immigration, came off, all of these cities, they moved to the cities. We had a group of people do it. We can't do that now. So if I'm going to rebuild a home, right, working with my hands, building, putting these things together, dovetailing it. Some of these houses are built with a single nail, right? It's all done with dovetail and what have you, all right? And it's well beyond my building expertise, trust me. But some of these folks, to watch the craftsmen, I wish I had half of the skill that they have. But yeah, they know how to do it. But it's expensive and it takes a long time. They have to replace it. So historical preservation zoning, I got in so much trouble. I still get in so much trouble because I call it the hysterical society. They are crazy about it, but I love them because they keep what's there, right? I mean, just to give us that thought of what history went through there and just to be able to see it. It's pretty crazy. It's good. I like it a lot. Yeah, everything had to be approved, right? Oakwood and Raleigh. So, yep, there's a lot of, North Carolina's a lot of history, a lot of good history. Aesthetic zoning. The most famous one I can think of is, are you familiar with downtown Charleston along Rainbow Road? You all seen the postcards of downtown Charleston, South Carolina? Every house is a different pastel color. Does anybody know of any in North Carolina? Every house, it's old houses along the waterfront in view of Fort Sumter, and you can go there and every single one of those houses all have pastel colors. And that's aesthetic zoning, all right? They're all built to be pleasing on the eye, right? And they really look nice. And they're on all you need is a Charleston, South Carolina postcard. You'll see the Rainbow Row. Can't miss it. Can't miss it. That's their big claim, one of the big claims to fame, all right? So that's aesthetics for the beauty of it. You got to have a certain amount of landscaping. You have to have trees, bushes, maybe it's color of the houses, maybe in a new subdivision, maybe one of the rules is you can't build 2 of the exact same models together. I've seen that too. So if you got 5 models, you can't build 2 of them together, the same model side by side. You got to skip a house. I've seen that. Okay. So again, they don't want everything looking all the same. Right? They want everything looking all the same. Spot zoning. Spot zoning. All right. This is where we have a group of properties that are rezoned to permit special use. Let me use this by example. It's probably easier to do so. Let's say I'm in Chapel Hill. All right. And this is the University of North Carolina. Okay. I know it's Duke blue, but don't worry about it. All right. And in the back corner here, in the back corner of the school is a big, this is all commercial property in the back. All right. It's surrounded by commercial property all around it. But the ag school is here. And what they want to do is they want to buy this 20 acres for the school. But right now it's zoned commercial. But what they want to do is they want to buy that 20 acres and try to use some of their hybrid seeds, work with some development, try to figure out new plants, grow trees, whatever they can do, use it for the horticulture and agriculture of the school. So they can go to the zoning department, and say, we want to spot zone that 20 acres and use it for agricultural school purposes. And what they can do is say, okay, we will let you do that. We'll let you take that 20 acres and we'll put that in there. That now becomes spot zone for 20 acres for the school. Now, you guys are the school and you are the ag school, but what we want you to do in order to keep that is we want you to put a buffer zone around it. We don't want people to know that you're working that 20 acres, because if they find out they're working that 20 acres, do you think you're going to have any crops left at the end of the day? They're going to be stealing your crops. They're going to be taking your stuff. So we want you to put trees or shrubs or whatever to block off the outside from anything that would know that you were working in there doing that. You're in ag school, put up trees, right? Figure it out, put a berm up, figure it out. So they would make us put a buffer zone. So this down here, inside here would be a, excuse me, this would be a spot zone. And this buffer here, this would be a buffer zone. All right, this would be a buffer zone all the way around it to protect it. One you'll see all the time is when you're going across a bridge, sometimes where you're going down the interstate, they have high walls on each side, right? Not only is that noise abatement, but it kind of keeps the freeway sounds and sights like a buffer between there's houses behind those, right? So you might see large walls as you're going over bridges or you're going over, going through a neighborhood or something of that nature. Those are all called buffer zones. Okay. Cluster zoning. Anybody live in a cul-de-sac? If I put a cul-de-sac in there, all right, there you go. If I put a cul-de-sac in there where I could get 5 houses in there without a cul-de-sac, I can get 6 in there because of the shapes of the lots. I can actually get an extra house on that block, all right, because I use that. So we're clustering these houses together, these cul-de-sacs. They not only they put the houses together, but it creates a little bit more open space, all right? Puts an extra house on each lot, creates a little more open space that we could use outside of it. All right, again, cluster zoning. We want to put all these houses together. Yeah, and we just talked about buffer zoning. All right, for you, the importance to you has to be that these are mandatory disclosures. Mandatory disclosures. So what does that mean? Well, here's what that means. It says that pending, potential, or confirmed zoning changes are material facts and must be disclosed to all parties. All right, these are material facts, have to be disclosed to all parties. If before they make any kind of zoning changes, they have to have a hearing. They have to have a public hearing. It has to go in front of their in front of their zoning commission. It's got to go in there, right? And they're going to post signs up when you can go to the meeting, state your opinion. You have to be aware of all these things. That's why you can do anything you want. But the best course of action is to be the expert for a small area and know everything about a small area, then try to know everything about 20 square miles, 25 square miles. Can you possibly know everything? If I'm going to do a zoning change, if they're going to change the regulations, am I going to get a? So sometimes you want to be, 10 yards wide and a mile deep than a mile wide and, very shallow. You don't want to do that. You want to be the expert. So knowing all these things have to be disclosed. You have to let people know. You're the agent. You're the adult in the room, the responsible party, right? Is something going to change, right? Is something going to change? Do we have potential or confirmed changes? You're going to make those phone calls. What's happening here? I got a buyer who wants to buy in this neighborhood. What's happening? What's the best thing I can do, right? So those are the kind of things that you have to find out. Another one is if you're buying in a community, who owns the street? Who's responsible for repair and maintenance of the street? Does it cost a lot of money to maintain a street? Streets are expensive, right? If they're putting a new road down, it usually costs public roadway over $1 million a mile. All right, for a new roadway. Now, public roadway is built a little different than a private roadway, but it's a lot of money, right? So what you need to be able to know is, are these roads in this subdivision, are they maintained by the homeowners or are they maintained by the state or the community? You got to know that, all right? You have to disclose that because maybe that community every year charges me $500 additional for road maintenance, or has to pave the road and gives me a special assessment for $2,000 for road maintenance. Why didn't I know that? I should know that, right? So this private street and who pays the maintenance is a mandatory disclosure. We need to let people know, all right? We need to absolutely let people know what it is, who owns it. So it's one of those things that we are going to have to pull out, all right? Now, please be aware here. I build a new community. I'm going to put roads in, and I'm going to say to the state of North Carolina, okay, I am dedicating my roads to you. And it looks like we'll be state road number 535. Okay, that's good. If the state does not accept that road, it's still private. It's still up to, even if it's got a state road number on it. If you do not have acceptance by the road commission, it's still privately owned. So you can't go telling somebody that says, well, we dedicated it to the state. You need acceptance. The state's got to want it, right? So again, it has to be accepted. And this is mandatory, all right? We got to know that. We've got to know that. Dedication and acceptance. Even if I want to give it to them, they don't have to take it. All right? So please understand that. Yeah, there probably is, right? Because it gets expensive. Can't maintain all of those little roads, particularly like gated roads, things of that nature, right? Yeah, so we have to find out who's going to fix them. Potholes, right? Hey, roads get knocked, roads get beat around. Now, not so much in the southern half of North Carolina, but if you go up to Boone and you go up to Blowing Rock and you get up into the northern latitudes here, right? Snow kills roads, right? It destroys roads. So your license is good to sell anywhere in the state. Now, it doesn't happen so much in Wilmington and Leyland and, down here in Calabash, right? We don't get that. We don't get that kind of snow. Up in the northern states, we get snow. Snow eats the heck out of roads. The Real Estate Commission and the local governments are working on this internet database, all right, to define which roads are public and which one is private. I still have not seen that yet. I don't know if it even exists, all right? It would be great if they did. It would make our lives easier. But for the time being, you're going to have to check it out. You have to call and find out, right, for all of these things, right? I don't know if this exists. Hopefully it will in the not too distant future, but I can't promise that. All right, so we just talked all about public regulations. We still have, we haven't gotten to private yet, but subdivision regulations. Let's say I want to create a subdivision. I have an acre of property and I split it into 2 lots. Do I have a subdivision? Yeah, all I need is 2 lots to have a subdivision. I don't need 5, I don't need 10, I don't need 100, 2. All right. So division of land into 2 or more lots becomes a subdivision. Okay. And again, cities and counties implement these subdivision regulations. What do you need? How do we get there? What's required of the developer? Now think in terms of the developer now. Let's say I had 100 acres and I want to build, let's say just for ease, let's say I want to build 100 homes on the 100 acres, 1 acre lot. Nice community. I want to be an upscale community. All right. So I have to show to the zoning board and get approval a preliminary plat plan. So what I have to do is I have to draw it out. I have to have my architect draw it all out. Where are these houses going to go? Where are my retention ponds going to be? How am I going to handle the runoff from the rain, permeable surfaces? How's my traffic going to flow? Is there going to be any green space, right? All of these things I have to put on a plat. I have to draw it out. All right. Now, when I submit this preliminary plat, I can start to show this property. I can even market it. What I can't do is sell it, contract it until this is recorded, until the transfer of title, until the final plat is recorded. So I can start marketing it. I can start, doing all of that. I can show it. But until I have a final plat map from the county that says, yes, I'm good to go, I can't transfer title. I can't close, right? I can't close until that's recorded. This is a criminal penalty in an unapproved subdivision. We can't let that happen. All right, we can't let that happen. So now keep in mind, once we put this into place, once we send that preliminary plat in and I get it back, I can't make any changes. I cannot make any changes. All right. So again, until I get the final one, I can't go in and it gets recorded. I can't go under contract. I can't exchange title. So my seller, the buyer rather, can walk away. Still not closed, right? Still not closed. All right. And it is a penalty for selling lots in an unapproved subdivision. You can't do it. You can market them, you can show them, you can't get under contract with them until we have that preliminary plat. Okay, so we talked about street disclosure laws. Who owns the street? Who's responsible for the maintenance, right? We need to make sure that this is a material fact. We need to say, is it public? Is it private management of the streets? What do we got, right? And any kind of CC&Rs, public covenants, protective covenants, these are enforceable, all right? What are they? When you walk in, when you come through the gates, you have to abide by this, all right? And this is going to be our plats. We can't transfer title until we have the final plat recorded, right? But contracts of sale or lease are allowed after the approval of the preliminary plat. So if they give me an approval and they haven't sent me the final back yet and it hasn't been recorded yet, if the contract, all right, if it includes a copy of the preliminary plat and requires the owner to provide buyer a copy of the recorded final plat prior to closing. So I'm going to get into contract. I'm going to wait. I can't close on this until we get the final plat. All right. Now, it clearly notifies the buyer tenant that until the final plat has been approved, changes can be made. changes can be made here, right? And after we get that final plat back, we can terminate this contract if I'm the buyer. If anything significantly changed, let's say I bought this place, in all of the advertisement and all the marketing and everything else, it said I was going to have a 1 acre lot and we were going to have a 10,000 square foot swimming pool, Olympic sized swimming pool, clubhouse that was 50,000 square feet, whatever, big. I bought it. Comes back after they do the preliminary plat. I'm only getting 3/4 of an acre. That swimming pool is only like half of the size that they promised. And we're getting a very tiny clubhouse, not the same big clubhouse. I can walk away because those are significant changes. I can walk away without any penalty from the contract. All right. I can be terminated. All right. It can be terminated. Okay. If the final recorded plat differs in any material respect. So any kind of big changes from what I bought, I can say, no, I'm not closing. All right. I have that walk away ability. So I can get there at a preliminary, I can get into a contract, I can't close. And if any big changes happen before I close, I can walk away once I get that final plat. I have to get a final plat now. We're surrounded by other states with a lot of land. Virginia, Tennessee, South Carolina, there's a lot of empty land out there. And what North Carolina wants us to do is they want to protect their constituents about land, right? Land. So if we're going to apply to the sale or lease of most subdivisions containing 25 or more lots that are marketed across state lines. So whether it's Virginia selling to us or we selling to Virginia or Tennessee or whatever, if we're selling 25 or more lots across state lines, we are going to have to give that buyer a property report prior to that purchase, okay? So we're advertising it, we're sending across, we need to give them more information, all right? So all the essential information about that property, and we'll get to give it to you on the next page here, right? Once I get that, I have a 7-day rescission period after a contract. So let's say I bought it. And then what this does, you all heard the nightmare stories of buying swampland in Florida, right? Well, where there's smoke, there's fire. There was a lot of that happening. It was unbuildable lots. Nobody ever went there. And they were buying Everglades lot, all right? So in that particular case, they will, they had land that was worthless. They paid for it. Well, now I know South Carolina has this law and North Carolina has this law. I'm pretty sure Virginia has it also. If we're selling lots across state lines, we need to give them a bunch of information. Now, we have a 7-day rescission after a contract after we read this, but I need to give them these 5 things. The distance over paved roads to nearby communities. Do I have paved roads or do I need a swamp buggy to get to my land? Right? I need to know that. The number of homes currently occupied. Are there any? Right? That would be a reasonable question. Are there any? Right? Soil conditions affecting foundations and septic systems. If this is all sand, is that foundation going to have a problem after a while? Probably, right? What type of title am I going to get? Am I going to get a special warranty deed, which is only going to say, hey, for the last 5 years? Does the buyer have to be out of state for this to apply? This is usually for out of state, but I would say that no, don't have to be out of state if this happens. All right, this is the Interstate Land Disclosure Act. Okay, so usually it's for out of state technically, but if they're getting it, you can get it. All right, and this is if they're advertising, right? Type of title buyers receive. What am I getting? Am I getting a special warranty G? Am I getting a quick claim, bargain to sale? What are we getting? Right? And do you have any kind of liens? What kind of liens? Right? Are you going to go bankrupt before you finish everything? Maybe I'm going to get half a road, no street lamps. Right? I only got 7 days to get away from this. Right? I only have 7 days to be away from this. So that is how this works. All right, that's how this works. So this is the Interstate Land Sales Full Disclosure Act. 25 lots or more across state lines. Okay, has to be registered with the Real Estate Commission, and it will be you have to give all this information to them, to each buyer, and you have a 7-day right of rescission. We talked about local zoning. Talked about local zoning. What we are going to talk about now is building codes, and building codes are statewide. The state puts these together, and they're enforced locally, but these are state for safety reasons. These are the minimum construction standards. All right. We need to be able to build these things so that they don't collapse. And there are different building codes for different areas, right? Beachfront houses have a little bit different building code, right? Than farmhouses out in the wilderness. A little bit different building codes. Okay. And before you do any kind of work, you need a building permit. You need a building permit. All right. And by the time you're done, your receipt for doing everything by the rules is going to be a certificate of occupancy, a C of O. They're going to give it to you. So when it's done, here is your certificate of occupancy. Okay. Now, if you're selling a house and it has unpermitted space, a deck that doesn't have any permits, they put a bedroom on, they didn't get any permits, anything like that, they built a shed in the back, they didn't get any permits. That is a material fact. Those are what? Facts about the house we talked about, right? Facts about the house. They did not get that permitted. Now, the building department has every right to tell you to tear it down if you don't have a permit, right? At your own expense. They're not paying for it. Okay, so just know that these building codes are for safety. All right. Zoning codes are more for land regulation. Where do we want the commercial areas? Where do we want the agricultural areas? Where do we want the residential areas? Okay. So zones are for construct, building codes are for constructions. Zoning is for local laws and land. Now, this brings us to health department, your health department. All right. It's another thing you have to deal with. What about septic systems? Now, if you have a community that has city water and city sewer, not a big deal, right? Not a big deal. But let's say you're out in the country somewhere and you need on-site septic, right? You need on-site septic. So that means you have to have the proper drainage in your yard somewhere, all right? We want to make sure that we have what's called a soil suitability test for unimproved land. Land that doesn't have any kind of house on it or any kind of improvement on it. This is called a PERC test, percolation test. All right. So unimproved property that will not support a septic system is a material fact. If I'm going to buy 100 acres out in the center of the state and there's nothing on it, and my broker had better tell me that I can't build anything that needs septic in there because the ground won't absorb it. My agent better tell me that. I better ask the question too, but my agent is responsible. My broker is responsible for telling me that. That's a material fact. Can I build any houses on 100 acres with no septic? No, it's worthless. It's worthless. I can't do it. I can graze cattle on it. That's about it. I can get permits, right? They're going to give me a certain amount of time to finish it, put my septic system in there, all right? But they're going to tell me how big it's going to be. You can tell me where to put that permit, right? The health department's going to come there. Where am I going to put this leach field? How much water will it absorb? I might have to put a house up that doesn't have a garbage disposal or a dishwasher because it would overload the system. And also, we're going to let you know that you can really only do you can have 2 bedrooms and a bath because it's really only big enough for 4 people. It's all the water that it'll consume. So they can tell you how big a house you can buy. Now, they're going to tell you also that capacity determined by the number of bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. That means that they consider 2 persons to a bedroom, 2 heartbeats to a bedroom. So if we say you can only build a 3-bedroom house here, 6 people. That's it. And it will be because the on-site septic system does not carry. All right. So we need to check that septic permit. What is it? And we can go to the health department and pull it, right? Make sure that we get that, how much of a capacity. Let's say I get I build a house, 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And then I come back 6 years later and I build another bedroom. I didn't put another bathroom on because the land won't take it. Would that be a problem with the health department? Yeah, it sure will be, because they said it was only good for 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, 4 people. You got room for 6 now. They wouldn't let you sell it as a 3-bedroom. All right. They would not let you sell it as a 3-bedroom. You can't lie, right? You cannot lie. You got to represent. All right. We'll talk about in chapter 7, we'll talk about misrepresentation. Okay. So you're going to be subject to disciplinary action if you didn't check this out. You can't be a lazy broker. You just can't. You need to be on top of your game and used to be checking this out. Trust but verify, right? Verify, verify, verify. Find out. Okay. You need to be able to do that. Do we have city water and city sewer? I don't know. Let's check. Do we have a leach field? Do we have on-site septic? Let's check. Now, this last thing here, it's called straight piping. And it's out there. What they do is they run a pipe from their septic system into the woods, into the river, because their land won't absorb any kind of sewage, which means that, and this is pretty gross, okay, that all of their gray water and everything else is going out into the far yard or into the river or stream or anything else. This is illegal. All right, this is illegal, and you should turn anybody in that you say. This is just horrible for the environment. All right, and it's against the law. You don't want to be that. You don't want your neighbor to be doing that, would you? That's pretty gross. So that's straight piping. That's on-site septic crew, all through the health department. You can go to the health department, you can get all of that information. Now, is anybody familiar with FEMA? Federal Emergency Management Administration? I'm glad you're not, if you're not, because these are your disaster folks, okay? And this is a federal agency, all right? Flood insurance, flood zones. FEMA handles all of that. And they also handle the NFIP, or National Flood Insurance Program. And you can go to any insurance agency you want and buy in a flood insurance policy, but you're going to buy it through NFIP. They're the ones who sell it, okay? So the National Flood Insurance Program. So all of any agency will sell it to you. Now, something you might want to consider, if you're buying a house in a flood zone or a higher flood zone, the least expensive way to do that is to see if they already have a flood insurance policy. If they do, you want to see if you can transfer it to you. Now, you're going to get a bump in rates, 10, 15, 20%. It's not going to be cheap, all right? But if they have to write a new policy on you that didn't exist before, you're going to lose all your federal subsidies. Now, all these things have been subsidized, right? You might get something that was worth 2, 3 times what the old seller would have paid. So it's going to be extremely expensive. So if you need flood insurance, check and see if the seller already has it, and then just transfer it. Yes, it's going to cost you a little more, but it's not going to lose all its subsidies. It's going to stay in place. Okay, make sure of that. All right. So again, federal regulations. Flood insurance is separate from homeowners insurance. Your homeowners insurance will not cover flood. All right. And then check your survey. Your survey will tell you what zone you're in. If you're a high risk zone, low risk zone, all right? And the flood maps are constantly changing. So go out to FEMA.gov and they'll help you out. They'll help you out, be able to find it. All right, now, I have an acre property. And the back, there's about 50 running feet of water in the back, and it's in the flood zone. It's a small part of my land, but if that little part is in the flood zone, my whole property is in the flood zone. My whole property is considered in the flood zone. Is anybody ever, you've driven down, and what's you got Route 74 through North Carolina, dead center, right? Literally goes from Wilmington out, we can go all the way out to Charlotte if we wanted to stay on 74. Straight, keep going. If you've traveled that distance and you've looked left or right, you can see houses that are right there, right along there. But you can't get there. There's like a block, a fence, chicken wire or whatever. Maybe it says public maintenance department only. If I needed to get to 74 as a way to go to work, and I saw that house was for sale, I need to know how I can get to that road. Yes, I can throw a softball from my front door to the road. I know that. But if I have to drive 20 to 25 minutes through the town and the traffic lights and everything else so that I can get to the entrance, is that convenient? That's not convenient, right? So we need to know how we get to those roads. What's the way to go, all right? So we have to disclose material facts about road access. How do we get there? Yes, it's right there, but no, you can't go through there. That's the highway department. You're not allowed.
If you like this video, feel free to share it with a friend. For more real estate education content, please subscribe to the channel. From all of us at Seacoast Real Estate Academy, thank you for watching.